Hello, grade 12 learners. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Today, we will be dealing with what notes on business studies. When it comes to ethics and professionalism, we have to know what is ethics, we have to know what is professionalism, and we also have to know the definition of business ethics, business behavior, business practices, professionalism, tax evasion, corporate governance, and accountability, and responsibilities, and the difference between those terms I have just mentioned now. So without wasting a lot of time, let me just go straight to the point. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I will first give you the definition of what business ethics, ethical behavior, business practices, professionalism, taxation or tax evasion, and then corporate governance corporate governance and accountability. We have to know the definition of those ones. Number one, we have what? Business ethics. What is business ethics? Business ethics, it's ideas about what is morally correct or not applied in a business situation. That's the definition. Definition number two, which is business, which is ethical behavior. We have to know what is ethical behavior. When we speak about someone who's doing what an ethical behavior, we have to know what kind of a person is that one. Ethical behavior is what? Acting in a way consistent with what society or individual think are good values. When we speak about ethical behavior, we are speaking about someone who thinks that the way they are acting in the society, it's a good values. Now we move to what? Business practices. When we go to business practices, we will be talking about what? The procedures or rule employed or followed by a business in the purity of its objection. In the purity of its objection. Then we move forward to what? Professionalism. We have to know what is professionalism. Professionalism, it do what? It describes the internally accepted standards or expectation that society has of people conduct and levels of competency in the workplace. Now we move forward to what? We move to the tax evasion. We have to know what is a tax evasion. The tax evasion is when a business does not declare all their income to SASSA with the aim of paying what? Of paying less tax. When we speak about what? Tax evasion. Now we go to what? Corporate governance. When we speak about corporate governance, we are simply speaking about what? The exercise of ethical and effective leadership by the board of governance of the business towards achieving a good performance, effective control, sustainability, and profitability. Now we move what? To accountability. When you hear the word accountability, what does it come in your mind when we speak about what? The accountability. It's whereby you have to account to the, you have to account to what you have done. Let's say you were given a task of producing the product in the workplace, so you have to account on what you have produced. So accountability helps on making the employees to produce something that it has what? Good values in the business or good production, because after producing they have to know that Mr. Hlungwani produced a certain good. So you have to do what? You have to account on what you have produced. So obviously everyone is going to do what? It's going to make sure that they produce something that has what? A quality. Then let's go to the definition of what accountability, as I was just giving you the example. Okay, accountability, it's holding directors and officials responsible or stakeholders for a decision and action That's what we are simply talking about when we speak about what? The accountability. That is what we are talking about when we talk about what? The accountability in the workplace. Whereby here, as I said, that today we will be dealing with what? Ethically and professional behavior where in the business. Now we have two left, which is transparency. We have to know what is a transparent. What does come in your mind when you hear the word transparency? And responsibility. When we speak about transparency, we speak about something that you can see by your naked eyes. When we speak about the responsibility, you must be responsible of what you did. This thing is very interesting, guys. No one is going to fail their final examination. I want everyone to pass their final examination with distinctions. And I want you to come back to the comment section and say, Mr. Hector, you have helped us very much in our final examination, because there are so many people that they are becoming helped by this channel. Transparency, it is directors and managers are expected to operate in a manner that is easy for stakeholders to understand what action are performed. That's the definition of the term transparency. Now we move what to the responsibility. The legal or moral obligation of the business in relations to the economic, social and natural environment within which it operates. We are now done with the definitions. Now we will be going to what? We will be going to the meaning of ethics. What is the meaning of ethics? It's a set of standard of what? Of expected behavior between what? The employer and the employee or business partner. Ethics. It's a set of standard behavior that is expected from who? The employer, the employee, or the business partner. When we speak about what? Ethic. Then when we speak about what? Ethical behavior, we have to know what is an ethical behavior. There is a difference between ethic and what? Unethical behavior. So we have to know what is an ethical behavior. When we speak about ethical behavior, we are referring to what? An act in a way consistent with what society and individual think are good values, which is ethical behavior is expected from every employee in the business. Now we have to go to the examples of ethical behavior and unethical behavior or unethical business practices. We are going to what? The examples of what? Ethical and unethical business practices. Number one, we will be dealing with what? Ethical. Whenever you see the word ethical, think of the business. Whenever you see the word ethical, can you please think about what? The business. Whenever you see the word ethical, always think of what? The business. Number one, the examples of ethical business practices. Using fair advertising. That's number one. That shows that the business is using what? Ethical business practices. Using what? Fair advertising. Not using child labor. They must not employ someone who's under the age of 16 years. That's a child labor. You cannot employ someone who's under the age of 16. Treating all employees equally. That's what ethical business practices. Paying fair wages. You must pay the employees fair what? Fair salary. When we speak about wage, we are speaking about what? The salary that they get monthly. Now we go to what the example of unethical business practices. Number one, unfairly or unfair advertising. That shows that the business is what? Unethically. Number two, pricing of goods in rural areas. That's also not what? It's not it is unethical behavior whenever you go to a rural place whereby you know that people in that place, they are living underprivileged, they don't have money, but you will go there and then start to put high prices. That's what we are simply talking about. And then we also talk about what? Taxation or tax evasion. Why? That means it is what? Unethical business practices. Now we move to the last one, the last example when it comes to unethical business practices. Using bribe to gain the business. That's also what? Unethically. When you use what? Bribe to gain what? The business. That's also unethically. Now I have to explain the meaning of professional behavior and meaning of professionalism. Can you please hear this clearly? I have to explain what, or give you the meaning of what? Professional behavior. Then I will also give you the meaning of what? Professionalism. Number one, kindly look at your screen so that you can see what I am talking about. Professionalism is the term used to describe a certain standard of behavior or a specific level of competence that adheres to an ethical code of conduct. Number two, it is behavior suitable for a job done for payment. Number three, it includes showing respect for other or take responsibility for your work, performing according to the job description. Remember, when we speak about the job description, we are simply speaking about things that they are required from you to be done by you in the workplace. When we speak about what? Job specification, we are simply speaking about what? The requirements or the qualifications that you have. But the job description, it's what is happening in the business. Look at your screen again so that I can give you the meaning of professionalism in all. Refers to what is right or wrong, acceptable in a business. When we speak about what? Professionalism, it refers to what is right, acceptable in a workplace, or it refers to what is wrong, acceptable in a business. Now we move forward to the example of professionalism and unprofessional business practices. Number one, we will be dealing with what? Professional business practices. When you hear the word professional business practices, always think of the employees. When you see the word professional business practices, always think of what? The employees. So now I want to give you the examples of what professional business practices and unprofessional business practices. Let us start with professional business practices. Number one, good use of time. They do what? Whenever they use what? Good use of time. That means it's what? Professional business practices. For an example, let's say it's a lunch. The lunch, you were required to go for it for an hour, and then you come back after 1 hour 30 minutes. That shows that you are not doing what? You are not doing it professionally. But whenever they say the lunch is 1 hour and then exactly 1 hour you come back to work, that means you are doing what? Professional business practices. Number two, treating people the same. That's also being professional in the business. Using polite language to colleagues. That's also what? Professional in the workplace. Keeping clients' details confident, not using clients' information for personal gain. That's also what professional, because remember, the information of the client is protected. So you cannot take the employee's client and give it to someone without consulting them or without their permission. Now we move forward to what? Unprofessional business practices. Number one, using rude, impolite language. Whenever you become rude at the workplace, that means you are unprofessional. Let's say you become rude to the customer. Remember, the customer is always right. So whenever you become rude to the customer, or you become impolite, not polite, impolite, that means you are not what? You are not using what? Professional business practices. Now we move to what? Abuse of the work time. That's also unprofessional business practices. Whenever you work more than 8 hours a day without agreeing with the management or the owner of the business or the employees, that's what? Abuse of work time. They have to consult you. Remember, you cannot work more than 8 hours a day without any agreement of the overtime, because whenever you work more than 8 hours a day, they must pay you overtime, unless if you had what? You had an agreement with the employee. Now we move forward, giving some people special favors. That's also unprofessional. Whenever there are people that you are just giving them special favors, that means you are unprofessional. Now we move to what? Now the last one, which is overstanding the number of hours worked. That's also unprofessional. Now we go to what? Difference between ethical behavior and professional behavior. We have to know the difference between what? Ethical behavior and professional behavior. Their difference. How do they differ? Let us start with what? Ethical behavior. Look at your screen right now so that you can see what I am talking about. Refer to a principle of right and wrong acceptable in society. Number two, conform to a set of values that are morally accepted. Then we move to what? Professional behavior. Refer to what is right, wrong, acceptable in a business. Number two, set a standard of accepted behavior in the business. That's the difference between what? Between the professional behavior and the ethical behavior. That's the difference. Now we move to what? Ways in which business can comply with King Code principles for good corporate governance. Now we have what? Number one, we have transparency. Number two, we have accountability. Number three, we have responsibility. This is what? Ways in which business can comply with King Code principles for good corporate governance. Number one, action must be what? Must be clear for all stakeholders. It must be clear for all stakeholders. That's number one. Look at your screen so that you can see what I am talking about. Actions must be clear to all stakeholders. Number two, surfing and other processes should be open and transparent. That means everything must be seen or transparent. Employees should be aware of the employment policies of the business. That's also what? Complying with what? The King Code principles of good corporate governance. Now we move forward to what? Transparency. Again, the last point. Businesses deals should be conducted openly so that there is no hint or sign of dishonest or corruption. So that means it must be what? Everything must be seen, so that we can prevent what? The corruption in the workplace, or the dishonest, or the betrayal of other people in the workplace. Now we move to accountability. Can you please kindly look at the screen so that you can see what we are talking about when we talk about what accountability? There must be regular communication between management and stakeholders. Number 2, businesses should be accountable, responsible for their decision or action. Number 3, companies should appoint internally and externally auditors to audit financial statement. Number 4, the board should ensure that the company ethics are effectively implemented. Now we move forward to what? Responsibility. What is a responsibility? Look at your screen. The business or board should develop and implement programs that should be aimed at protecting the communities in which they operate. Number 2, the business should develop remedial programs to protect the environment, for example, reduce air and water pollution. Now we move to number 7, which is what? Ways in which responsible and ethical and effective businesses practice should be conducted. It is what? Ways in which professional, responsible, ethically, and effective business practices should be conducted. Look at your screen so that you can simply see what I am talking about. Mission statement should include values of equality or respect. There must be what? Equality and respect on what? On the mission of the business. Number 2, treat workers with respect, dignity by recognizing work well done. Whenever they do work very well, you must recognize the employees so that they can also be uplifted in their spirit. Now we move to number 3. Treat all their employees equally, regardless of their race, color, age, gender, or disability. They must all be treated equally regardless of their color, race, disability, gender, age, and so forth and so on. Then we move to the last point. All employees should have access to equally opportunities in the workplace. They must have what? Access, so which is they must also be given the opportunity of being what? The equal opportunities in the workplace. Now we will be moving to number 8, types of unethical business practices and examples. Types of unethical or business practices: it is unfair advertising, pricing of goods in rural areas, taxation or tax evasion. Then the examples, we have to know the examples. Unfair advertising example, look at your screen. Giving goods deceptive names or false labeling. That's also what? Unfair advertising, whenever you advertise something that is fake. Now we move to number 2. Selling second-hand goods as a new goods. That's also unfair. Whenever you will sell something that is second-hand as if like it's something that it's new, it's better to tell the employees that this thing is a second-hand. Number 3, using fine print to cancel important information. That's also what? Unfair advertising. Criticizing competitors' goods. That's also unfair advertising, because you are criticizing what? The competitors' goods. So on this one, on this question, you will be given a scenario whereby you have to identify the unfair advertising, and then you will also quote the example. Now we move to number 2 of the type of unethical or business practices, which is pricing of goods in rural areas. Number one, inflating price, increasing of prices, changing higher for goods of inferior quality in rural areas. That's also the example of pricing of goods in rural areas. Now we move toward taxation or tax evasion. Business that do not declare all their income to SASSA. Falsing the business financial statement. That's also a tax evasion, whereby you false what the business financial statement. So now what I want you to know, you must note that you must be able to identify what I've just taught. Topics of what unethical business practices from given statement or scenario, as I explained that. What I have just explained, you will find it in a scenario. There is no need of cracking your mind, but you must know the examples. Okay, whenever a business does this, that means they were doing what? Unfair advertising. Or okay, this one, it was what? Pricing of goods in what? Rural areas. And then okay, this one, they were preventing of paying the tax. So that means it's what? Tax evasion in the workplace. So you must be able to identify this crisis, or you must be able to identify the examples of what? The types of unethical business practices. Now we move to number one. Let us go to, we move to number 9, which is challenges posed by the above mentioned types of unethical business practices. Okay, unfair advertising, pricing of goods in rural areas, and taxation or tax evasion. It has what? Their own challenges. So we have to know the challenges. Unfair advertisement could be harmful to customers. That's the first challenge. Second challenge on unfair advertising, the use of false or misleading statement in advertising, leading to misrepresentation of the concerned product, which may negatively impact the consumers. Number 3, business can make unwise advertising choice when they are under pressure, increase of their profit. So those are the challenges that are faced by what? By the unethical practices in the business. Now we move to what? Strategies to deal with unfair advertising in the workplace. Number 1, look at your screen. Consumers must report unfair advertising to the advertising state authority. Number 2, business should be encouraged to keep their advertising fair and in line with the Constitution. Now we move to number 2, the second unethical behavior or practices in the business, which is pricing in what? In rural areas. Look at your screen. Some businesses in rural areas exploit their customers by adding much more than necessary to their price. As I explained there, that's the challenge. The second challenge that they have, some customers in rural areas have little economic power and are vulnerable to explosion. That means they don't have money, but you will go there and start to increase prices. Number 3, business may form monopolies in rural areas and increase their prices unilaterally. That's also the challenge. Then we move to the strategies to deal with pricing in rural areas in the workplace. Look at your screen. Work together with suppliers to share delivery costs to remote rural areas. Number 2, businesses can buy in bulk to get the discount to avoid changing high prices. Number 3, change fair relating to price for goods and service. That's the strategy to deal with what? To deal with the pricing in rural areas in the workplace. Now we move to taxation or tax evasion. Look at the screen. We must first look at what the challenge and the strategy. Look at your screen right now. Challenges posed by taxation or tax evasion as an unethical business practices. Number one, business may pay heavy fines for evading tax. They may pay what? Heavy fines for what? Evading tax. Number two, tax evasion may negatively impact on the business image. Number three, the accountant may charge high fines for falsing for a financial statement. Number four, business may lose key stakeholders if the act of the tax evasion is reported. Now we have to look at the strategies on to deal with what? The taxation or the tax evasion in the workplace. Number one, look at your screen. VAT needs to be charged on VAT-able items. Number two, submit the correct tax returns to SASSA on time. Number three, all products should be correctly invoiced and recorded. Number four, disclose all source of income for tax payment purposes. I hope we are going together. I hope no one is left behind, because these notes, they are very simple. You just have to know them. You just have to know them so that when you go to your final examination, you may be able to answer the questions correctly and be able to get marks. Now we go to what? Types of unprofessional business practices and the examples. Sexual harassment, that's also what? It's a type of unprofessional business practices in the workplace. What are the examples of sexual harassment? Managers who promise employees promotion if they agree to have a relationship with them. Number two, we have what? Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. What are the examples? Employees who download music and moves using the business resource. Number two, an employee who uses business resource for his or her own personal gain. That's what? Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. Number three, abuse of work hours. That's what? Unprofessional business practices. Making personal calls during work hours. That's what? Abuse of work time. Taking extended lunch breaks. I have explained this. That's also what? Abuse of work time. Doing personal business during work hours. That's also what? Relating to abuse of work time. Even this one, it's very easy. You must just identify it, because they will be giving you a scenario. For instance, let's say in the scenario they said Sipo is at the workplace on the during hours. Sipo is on the phone call. You must know that Sipo is doing what? Abuse of what? Work time. And then you have to do what? Quote that sentence that says Sipo is on the phone call during working hours. I hope you are understanding what I am teaching you. Now we move to what? Number 11, challenges posed by the above mentioned types of what? Unprofessional business practices. It also has the challenges. Sexual harassment, it has also its own challenge, and we must also have the strategy of dealing with what? Sexual harassment. Number two, unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. They have what their challenges, but we must also have what the strategy of dealing with what the challenge. The abuse of work time, it also has what their challenges, but they must also do what we must also find the strategy of dealing with that challenge of abuse of time work or work time. Number one, the challenge of sexual harassment. Look at your screen. If the affected part may stay away regularly from work. That's also a big challenge that can make the business fall. Number two, business could lose female employees and retain less female applications. Whenever they know that in that place or in that work, for you to get the promotion, you must be in a relationship with the manager or the owner of the business. That will result in losing female employees. Number three, sexual harassment causes discomfort, humiliation, and negative effect work relations in the workplace. Now we have to know the strategies. How can we deal with this challenge? Number one, provide a framework for corrective action. You must do what? Provide a framework for corrective action. Number two, educate employees on sexual harassment matters. We must also educate employees on sexual harassment. Number three, formulate a policy regarding sexual harassment. Number four, implement internally compliance and disciplinary procedures that can also reduce on doing what on the sexual harassment. Now, ensure complies with the law, business code of conduct. You must make sure that the business comply with the law, and the employees must also comply with the code of conduct. Now we go to what number two, the unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. The challenges posed by what? Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources as unprofessional business practice. Number one, look at your screen. Fraud increase the cost of doing business and undermine the competitiveness of the business. Number two, discourage investors as fraud and corruption increase the risk of investment. Number three, the business can experience sustainably lose if it goes unchecked. I hope we are all understanding what I am simply talking about. I hope we are all understanding what I am simply talking about, because I want every one of you to get distinctions when it comes to everything that I teach. Do you see if you can apply the notes that I have just gave you so far? You are going to pass. Even your teachers, they will be surprised. Where did you get this? How did you manage to get such marks? Can you please share the strategy with the learners? Now we move to the strategies to deal with what? Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. Number one, look at your screen. Conduct regular audits. Number two, identify risk areas, vulnerable areas. Number three, educate employees about the impact of fraud. Number four, implement or introduce fraud prevention strategies. Now we go to what the challenge of of abuse of work time, and then we will go to the strategy of it, and then we are done with what? The notes for today. Challenges posed by abuse of work time in the workplace. It may result in employees often abusing work time. Number two, abuse of work time could result in losing customers or not meeting deadlines. Number three, wasting time costs the business money and affect productivity. Number 4, abuse of work time results in decline in profit, which could damage the financial wealth of the business. Now we go to what the strategies to deal with what the abuse of work time. Number 1, speak directly to those employees who abuse work time. Mention employees to ensure that tasks are completed on time. Code of conduct or ethics should contain clear rules about abuse of work time. Strategy working hours in which, structure working hours in which a way that employees have free, flexible time for personal matters. So guys, we are simply done with the notes. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. I hope you are going to pass your final examination, and I believe that everyone who's been watching this video from the beginning until now, you are going to pass your final examination with distinction.